Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So for the past week or so, we've been in this hysterical debacle. And I'm going to call it debacle, and I'm going to call it hysterical, because it is insane. The thought is that social media, Russians on social media, undermine democracy. They attacked America. All of this hyperbolic rhetoric that they're using to essentially make the point that there were people putting Facebook ads and Twitter ads. Mind you, half of the Facebook ads, more than half, took place after the election, but this apparently is being put forth as a thing to undermine democracy. And no, by the way, while it's undermining democracy, let's also tar left-leaning groups. So Black Lives Matter. Let's tar Bernie Sanders supporters. Let's tar Muslims. Let's tar anybody who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. Let's do that. Now, forget the fact that studies show they didn't have an impact, meaning it didn't have an impact on the outcome of the election. She lost on her own merits. And also forget the second fact, that even if everything you say is true, America does the same. So we're stuck with 2 points. A, didn't have an impact on the outcome of the election. And B, America does the same. Not just the same, we do far worse. We've destroyed governments in the last administration. Just in the last administration, in our recent earshot, we're in 70% of the globe. We attack one country after the next on a whim, if the president of the United States was somehow a king. We're howling at social media posts. We're howling at social media posts. And to put this in perspective, I want to make 2 points. Or those were my 2 points, but I want to back this up. I don't want you to just take my word for it. So, first, let's hit the story. I've hit the story before, but I just want to nail it in. Revealed, U.S. spy operation that manipulates social media. Military sock puppet software creates fake online identities to spread pro-American propaganda. I'll put this article at the bottom. Now, we're being told that this is an act of war. This is 9/11. Is it 9/11 when we do it? Is it 9/11 when we do it? So, explain to me, when we attack Libya and we destroy that country and then have an open-air slave markets, why are there no consequences for that? When we invade in Syria and attack Syrian forces, why are there no consequences for that? What about Iraq? Why are there no consequences for that? I'm asking, we're bombing one country after the next. We don't have any justification, or we don't have any legitimacy to do so. Why are there no consequences? But Facebook posts, Twitter posts, Facebook and Twitter ads, that undermines democracy. Do you know how embarrassing and tiny and weak your democracy or representative government is if it's being undermined by Facebook and Twitter posts? And again, I keep making the point, we're doing the same thing on a larger scale. Let's keep going. This is James Woolsey. James Woolsey is a spook. Well, he used to be a spook, but I don't necessarily know if he ever resigned from being a spook. Listen to what he tells Laura Ingraham when Ingraham asks him about whether we do this in other countries. This is awesome.
Or under their wing.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections?
Oh, probably, but it was for the good of the system in order to avoid the communists from taking over. For example, in Europe, in 47, 48, 49, the Greeks and the Italians, we
don't do that now, though? We don't mess around other people's elections, Jim?
Only for a very good cause.
Can you do that? Do a Vine video on a former CIA director.
Only for a very good cause. That's the only time we do it. Do we meddle in? We didn't meddle in other people's elections. Only when we needed to. I mean, in Greece and you understand, they were talking about putting in brutal dictators in those countries, talking about the stop of communist revolution. It wasn't their choice to make on the communist revolution. It was ours. So we put in our dictators in those countries. That's the first point. He says it was only for a good cause. It was only for a good cause. Unfortunately, America was the determining factor on what was a good cause in those other countries' situation. That's amazing. That's amazing. And even when you're talking about it now, he's like, and she's like, we're meddling in other countries' elections. It's fucking hilarious. It's hilarious. We're meddling in other countries' elections while having a bitch fit about Twitter and Facebook posts. Twitter and Facebook posts. $150,000 in Twitter and Facebook posts. Half of which happened after the election. Half of which happened after the election. If you don't want to believe the spook right here who's talking about it, what about this? This is The Guardian. United States secretly created Cuban Twitter to stir unrest and undermine government. United States aid started Zunzuel, a social media network built on text in hope, I guess it hopes, it could be used to organize smart mobs to trigger Cuban Spring. Well, we're told that that's 9/11. That's the equivalent of 9/11. That's the equivalent of Pearl Harbor. We should be sanctioned. Somebody should apparently attack this country for this. This is an act of war. This is an act of war. It's fucking ridiculous. In July 2010, Joe McSpeeden, for whatever reason I want to say Speedo, Joe McSpeeden, a U.S. government official, flew to Barcelona to put the final touches on his secret plan to build a social media project aimed at undermining Cuba's communist government. McSpeeden and his team of high-tech contractors had come in from Costa Rica and Nicaragua, Washington, and Denver. Their mission, to launch a messaging network that could reach hundreds of thousands of Cubans. To hide the network from the Cuban government, they would set up a Byzantine system of front companies using a Cayman Islands bank account and recruit unsuspecting executives who would not be told of the company's ties to the U.S. government. McSpeeden didn't work for the CIA. This was a program paid for and run by the United States Agency for International Development, best known for overseeing billions of dollars of United States humanitarian aid. When people talk about these U.S. aid companies and all this other stuff, and they're like, oh, those people are conspiracy theories. Conspiracies. This is not a conspiracy theory. For all intents and purposes, they were using aid as a front to create the pretext for Cuban Spring. But I guess it was for the best reasons, according to the other spook. According to the documents obtained by the Associated Press, multiple interviews with people involved in the project, the plan was to develop a bare-bones Cuban Twitter using cell phone text messages to evade Cuba's strict control of information and a stranglehold of restrictions on the internet. In a play on Twitter, it was called Zuneo Zuneo, slang for Cuban hummingbirds tweet. Documents for the U.S. government plan to build a subscriber base through a non-controversial content, news messages on soccer, music, and hurricane updates. I like that, hurricane updates. That's awesome. Later, when the network reached a critical mass of subscribers, perhaps hundreds of thousands, operators would introduce political content aimed at inspiring Cubans to organize smart mobs, mass gatherings, at moments' notice that might trigger a Cuban Spring, or, as one USA document put it, renegotiate the balance of power between state and society. At its peak, the project drew more than 40,000 Cubans to share news and exchange opinions, but its subscribers were never aware that it was created by the United States government or by American contractors who were gathering their private data in hope that it may be used for political purposes. It sounds to me that we committed a 9/11 in Cuba. It sounds to me that this was Pearl Harbor. It sounds to me that America was using social media in order to undermine the government of Cuba. Now, I'm being told that this is Pearl Harbor and this is some semblance of an act of war that's being perpetrated on the American public, despite the fact that it had no impact, despite the fact that we do the exact same thing around the world. All I'm saying is, this is what governments do. And this government has no pretext. I mean, not pretext. We have no standing. We have no moral high ground. In fact, we are under the fucking ground on this. This is obscene and ridiculous. And you understand that the rest of the world has to be laughing at us. Because even though we may be comically inept in our understanding of world events and history and all this other stuff, the rest of the world is not. We have no clothes on. This is embarrassing. So I'm going to put the story at the bottom. If we're being fair and we're looking at stories that take place outside of us in the same gravity and hysteria that we look at stories that take place, you know, meaning we can't necessarily say, well, that happened to us, so this has a much larger gravity and everything else. No, if you're doing the same thing, don't bitch at me. It's the kid, it's the bully who beats the shit out of kids every day, and then one day he gets the shit slapped out of him. And he runs to the principal. Hey, this person slapped the shit out of me. Yes, I'm a bully. Yes, I beat the shit out of people every day. Yes, I take people's lunch money and I pull girls' hair. But I do that not with this idea that somebody is ever going to do this back to me. Come on, this makes no sense. I understand the politics of it, but it's such blistering hypocrisy that it's hard to actually take it serious. It's hard to take it serious. So, you know, it makes it all the more sadder that Bernie Sanders is out there shaming himself on this. Yes, I'm bringing up Bernie Sanders again because that's fucking embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing. On Meet the Press with Mr. Oblivious Chuck Todd giving this diatribe that needs to be hostile consequences, there need to be serious consequences if they put more Facebook and Twitter ads. If they use more Facebook and Twitter ads to undermine our democracy. You know what undermine our democracy, Bernie Sanders? You allowing yourself to be cheated in such a magnificent way and saying dick about it, then co-signing that cheating by coming around screaming that the Russians had Twitter and Facebook ads. Between Russians putting Twitter and Facebook ads and the Democratic Party cheating you, blisteringly cheating you over and over and over again, cheating you and your supporters, I would guarantee you that the cheating done by the DNC and the people you're shilling for was far more intense and over the top than a bunch of Facebook and Twitter ads. One had actual impact in the election itself, the other did not. The one that had an impact was the DNC directly cheating you. The Facebook and Twitter ads, at least based on the studies, there was none. So I'll leave it at that. The articles are below, and yeah, I ended at that. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. Thanks everyone. Come on.